Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I decided today that I would bring in examples of some of the instruments that I have, some of the larger ones, not all of them because I have quite a few. But we've been talking about recorders, and I showed you last time or talked about alto recorders and descant recorders, and that it would go up to the basses, and I've shown you some sketches. So I decided to bring a few in this morning, and just so you could get a feel that even within an instrument group, you can have a lot of variations. There's tons of instruments that you can learn how to play, and they're all good, and they all play some music, some more than others, but others, some are really, you can play a lot of music, some not quite so much. But then there are, even within those groups, different kinds of instruments, different sizes. Like with the saxophone, you'd have the E-flat alto, the B-flat tenor, and so forth. And the sopranos, C-sopranos, I want to bring those in at some point. They're a little bit harder to carry. So at any rate, I'm going to start off by showing you 3 or 4 5 types of recorders, and I'm going to start off with the smallest one that's made professionally, and this is the Sopranino. Now the Sopranino is about 9 inches long. It's not that big, and as you can see, there's no separate foot joint. The body of the instrument and the foot joint are all combined as one unit. You do have the head joint right here with the mouthpiece on top. If you look in the back, you see a little discoloration. It's not really a discoloration. It's a little different color. This is where the block is, and then it kind of swoops up in the typical kind of recorder style. It has the labium underneath it. It has the tone hole in the back, and the regular tone holes in the front. It's very small, and when you put your hands on the instrument, the tone holes are close together. But it does play. It plays very well. It's a fully developed recorder, but it's pitched pretty high. This one's a Yamaha, and if I play, I'm not going to play much on it because it'll probably be uncomfortable for your ears to hear it, but it's very high pitched. So you can get an idea. It's kind of squealy, but it can play anything that a recorder can play. It's in the key of F. It is the smallest professionally made instrument, and it plays like a dream, but it's very high pitched because of its size. Remember, the longer the instrument, the deeper the tone. And then the next up, of course, would be the one that I use the most. And this would be the descant or the recorder, soprano recorder. And most people who play them play this, play the size. And you have this, I'm not pulling it apart, but you have the foot joint, the body, and the head joint. And if you look in the back, you can see very clearly where the block is. It's just a little bit different color. And the mouthpiece, which is a Fipple mouthpiece, which I've shown you before, is right here on top. The labium right here. The tone hole for the thumb hole that you use for octaves right here. And you won't be able to see it, of course, but there's a little tiny imprinted B on top of that, which shows that you would use Baroque kinds of fingerings for it. Most of the instruments are actually like that. Most people play the Baroques, but they look exactly like any other recorder. And you hear me play it all the time. It's a very nice instrument. Now, a lot of these instruments are made out of plastic. This one is made out of plastic as well. The plastics do very well, and there's no reason that you would shy away from that. The wooden ones are a little more expensive. They're a little harder to clean. You can't use alcohol on them or the wood is going to split, and then you can't use it after that. The split will just get wider and wider and wider, and it won't be playable. So plastics are a good choice for children, and professional professionals may use a wood instead of the plastics, but many of them use the plastics as well. So I brought in this, and this is a Yamaha. This I use a lot. And also you can get them in different colors. This is a Japanese. This one was made in Japan, and it plays well. It plays just as well as the others. But the thing I like about it for teaching purposes is that there is plastic where the joints come together. So it's very easy to identify the fact that this is the head joint and this is where it stops right here, because I can pull this top right off. And then this would be the body, and right from here down to the end is the foot joint. There's plastic around the end of the foot joint. There's plastic on the thumb hole in back, so you can see where it's located, just to put your thumb on, and then that you kind of half hole that, pull it down when you want the octaves. Plays very well, but you see you can get them in brown or you could get them in white, and if you go to any kind of specialty shop, you could get them in other colors as well. Now the next size up from the Descant is going to be the alto, and I did have it here before. I've got actually 4 altos. They are very beautiful instruments. They have a wonderful, wonderful tone. And you see that they're larger, so you can see more what the fingerings are like. And I'm going to stop bringing this one in more, because if you have some problems with seeing what I'm doing the same thing on this as I would be doing for the Descant. You can see the fingerings and so forth easily. The foot joint is right here. You can see how much bigger it is. The head joint is right here, and this is the body. And in the back, of course, you have that thumb hole, which is visible, I think. It's visible. I can see it. It's like a little dot. And left hand on top, right hand on the bottom. The block is right here. It's got a little different color to it, which is typical. This is also a Yamaha. I have a lot of Yamaha. I have a lot of Casio, and they're both very, very nice instruments. This is in the key of F, and so is the Sopranino in the key of F. And so if I were to play the same note, now the fingers are going to be a little different, but if I play the same note, it'll be in a different octave, but it'll sound the same, basically. So this is the alto. Now I have another alto that I just brought in, just for you to make a comparison. You won't be able to see it as well. And this one does not, this one also has the B on it, so it's also Baroque fingering. But what I like about this, it's so easy to see where the joints are. Foot joint, body, head joint. They have just such a wonderful tone. And they really get to quite a high note, but not as high, of course, as a Sopranino does. But this is also in the key of F, so just to kind of keep that in mind. Then the next one up, which I don't bring in very often, it's in the key of C like the soprano is, and that's the tenor. This is quite a larger instrument, and it has a marvelous tone. It actually sounds like a human voice. I'm not going to play much on it because the finger stretches are so great, but and I'm going to move a finger out of position so you can hear another note. I've done a lot of solo work on this, and it is truly beautiful. And both the ones I have are Yamahas, and they're brown, and you can see foot joint, how big that is, the body, how big that is, and then this whole thing, this whole area, of course, is the head joint, and the labium is right here. You may not be able to see it too well on the screen because of the dark color. The thumb hole that you use for your octaves is right here, right below the bottom of this joint right here, and there is that little little B on top, which you're going to not be able to see. It's also a Yamaha. It has a tremendous tone. Now, I have done recorders a lot in different orchestras, and most of the people that I deal with, and most people who hear me play, really prefer the alto and the tenor. I was rehearsing, I was going to be playing a solo with a group, and I was rehearsing with a tenor, and one of the women who were going to be helping me with it, she was playing piano. I started playing, and she stopped, and she says, "Oh, my heart, my heart, my heart." There was nothing wrong with her heart. She was just astounded by the beauty of the tone of this instrument, and it is wonderful. It has 2 keys. Most recorders don't have keys. You get them on the basses, 2 or 3 or 4, and you get them on the tenors. These 2 keys, now I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but down here there is a tone hole and it's open. When I press this key, I don't know, you may not be able to see it. When I press this key, part of that key goes down. There's a key here, and it's composed of really 2 keys together. I press one, and it goes down. That helps me to play one of the notes. I press this one, and it goes down on top of the other one, and you actually get 2 keys going down with one press of the finger, and it's for other notes. So when you get an instrument that's large enough that there's no way that you can reach, no way that you can possibly reach, keys will be put in, and then you can press the key, and it effectively closes a tone hole that's below it. So that's one thing to keep in mind for the larger instruments. Now, this is a beauty of an instrument, but so the other one I brought in is the bass. This is a folded bass. It's the biggest recorder I have. I'll hold it like this so you can really see it. It really is an amazing instrument. The only ones that are larger would be the great basses and the straight basses, and they would be bigger than this, but I don't have those. They cost thousands of dollars. They're very hard to play, and they're very big. You play them standing up. I've shown you sketches of them, but this instrument here is a folded bass. It has a beautiful tone, and you can see there is a key right here, and there is another key down here, and there are 2 more keys down here. So it has a total of 4 keys, because the instrument is large enough that you'd never be able to get your hands to stretch big enough to be able to play all of it, you know, and it does have a gorgeous tone. There is a place here for you to put your thumb on the right hand, your right hand thumb, to hold your hand in position, and then of course your hands will be on the keys, and then there is a tone hole in the back, like all of the recorders have. So, and that's way up here. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but it's way up here. And so if I were to just to hold the instrument and to play it, and I'm only going to play 1 or 2 notes. I don't do this for solo work anymore because the finger stretches are so great. But believe it or not, it's easier to use this one than it is to use the tenor, because there are more keys attached to it. So for places where you cannot reach, you're more likely to have a key to help you to reach what you need to. And it has a beautiful tone. There was times when I would be playing in conferences and so forth, and I would have this with me, and people were fascinated because most people had never seen a recorder this big. And because it is huge. But I don't have any bigger ones, but the great basses and the straight basses, which you play standing on the floor, would be like this if the neck piece, which is right here, was standing straight up. And if it was standing straight up, it would be too big for me to play sitting down, unless I had a bocal, and I showed you that once before in a sketch, that comes down. It's a metal piece that comes down, and you blow into that metal piece instead of blowing into it from the top. So these are the recorders, and I've got most all of them with the exception of those great basses. I have one more to show you, and it's the smallest thing. It's this one right here. It's a little recorder. You wouldn't be able to play anything much on it, but if you look at it, it's built like any other recorder. It has a little labium right where my finger is. I'm taking my finger off from it. It has the mouthpiece. It has that little area of a little different color in the back. That's its block. And it has tone holes in front. And I am able to play maybe one or two or three notes, but they don't necessarily come in well. It's more like a squeal. I have some of this is really kind of like a party favor, and I do have I use the yellow because it's easier to see it, it's small, so the contrast in color is a help to see it, but it actually is made like a regular recorder, and it does play a little. Some of them do a little better than this does, but at least you can see what it's like. So I'm going to go over once again the recorders just by identifying them and telling you how big they are and what they can do. The Sopranino is 9.5 inches long, and this is what I showed you first. And it's in the key of F, and it's very high pitched, but it's a fully developed recorder, and it can play what any other recorder can play. It's just smaller and higher pitched. And then you have the soprano, which is also called the descant, and this is the one I usually bring in. I have quite a few of them, so whatever one I bring in is like this one. This is a melody instrument. It's 12.5 inches long. It's in the key of C. It's a very good instrument to start music training on because it has all of the fingerings that you normally would have in a woodwind instrument. It's in the key of C, so you can play anything that's written. You don't have to transpose it in order to play it. It doesn't play in every key, but it plays in enough keys that I can actually play Messiah pieces from Handel's Messiah by using this instrument, and I have. It's in the key of C, as I said before. This is the other one that I brought in, which is the same, just a darker color. Then you would have the alto, and I brought in two of those. This is the alto. It's sometimes called a treble. Like the soprano is sometimes called a descant, the alto is sometimes used a treble, called a treble. And it is a principal instrument. And years ago, in orchestras, it was one of the principal instruments of orchestras. It's in the key of F, and great composers such as Bach, Handel, and so forth wrote for the alto. They wrote sonatas for the alto. That is a form of music, and I didn't measure how big it is. I should have done that, I guess. The tenor, which I showed you, this one here is 25.5 inches long, and it's used in ensembles. It's in the key of C, like the descant, like the soprano is. And then the bass, which I showed you, is 36 inches long. This is kind of heavy as well, and it's in the key of F, and 36 inches. Now the great basses are even taller and heavier. And so this is more or less what you get in your recorders. Now I have some other instruments that I am going to show you, but I think what I'm going to do is wait until next time, because I have shown you before, like for example, I've shown you a sassoon, and I've shown you a penny whistle. And next time I'm going to show you the big versions of the sassoon and the penny whistle. You will be surprised at how big they can get. So recorders come in different sizes and different keys, basically F and C. The sassoon comes in a larger one, the penny whistle, and they come in different sizes anyway. It comes in the larger one I'm going to be showing you. It's really quite large. So I'm going to close it here, and we will continue with this next time. time, and we'll be using the sasuto, and we'll be using the penny whistle, and I'll show you the variation of the sizes with them. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.